Hello, my name's Hayanik, and welcome to my third episode of an honest review. In this series, I look at a tank's stats, compare it to other tanks at the same tier with similar roles, and figure out if it's actually worth playing or not. Now, without any more delay, let's talk about the STB-1. So this is my first review of a tier 10 tank, so I might spend some extra time talking about it than normal, but I'll still try to keep it somewhat quick. I will be comparing the STB to the Leopard 1, M48 Patton, and T62A for this video. Starting off in firepower, we can see that there's already something very interesting going on. This is the worst gun out of these tanks in every aspect other than gun caliber on the T62. Moving down to weapon handling though, it has the same aim time as the T62, which is also the fastest out of these tanks. It has the worst dispersion with the T62. The Leopard 1 and M48 Patton beat it. Its dispersion when moving is shared with the M48 Patton, and the Leopard 1 and T62A beat it in this category. Now, while it has the worst gun elevation out of these tanks, it has the best gun depression, which is a lot more important than gun elevation, not to mention 11 degrees of gun depression, which is phenomenal. Something I normally don't cover in honest reviews are the different shell types, except this is the one time where it actually comes into play. There is something quite unique about the STB-1's premium ammo. In the most recent update, it got its heat shells replaced with premium AP, and as you can see, has extremely high alpha damage compared to all the other tanks' premium rounds. This means that you can spam premium ammo more frequently without worrying about doing less damage. Oh, the STB, my absolute beloved of a tank, but I shall remain completely unbiased for this video. However, this tank is actually really good. Regarding its firepower, while it is the worst out of these tanks, that doesn't mean it's bad. The STB's gun works very well for what it is, not to mention its good aim time and gun depression. A little bit of foreshadowing here, but the STB's gun depression combined with its amazing turret armor is no laughing matter. I mean, if you get a map like D-Day and you're actually a good player, it's just a free win. Do not underestimate this gun. It is very, very good. Moving down to mobility, we can see that it has the second worst top speed out of all these tanks, better than the M48 Patton, and slightly slower than the T62. Its engine power isn't bad at 750, so it actually gets a pretty good power to weight ratio, better than the M48 and better than the T62. However, the terrain resistance on this tank is not good. Its effective horsepower on all terrain is worse than all of these tanks. And while camo isn't that important, it is good to note that it is worse than the Leopard 1 and T62A, but better than the M48. I'll be honest, I don't have much to say about the mobility of this tank, so I'm more foreshadowing here, but the armor on this tank isn't actually bad, so its power to weight ratio isn't actually terrible. I've never really felt sluggish in this tank, and I really don't think it is looking at its stats. Because of this tank's other attributes, it is still very versatile. Moving down to the miscellaneous/extras category, it has the same critic coefficient as the M48, but worse than the Leopard 1 and T62A, and its enrichment boost is the exact same. The view range on this tank is 260, which is worse than the Leopard 1 and M48, but it matches the T62. It has an HP pool of 1,850, which is the same as the M48, better than the Leopard 1 and worse than the T62. Its armor is really good for what it is, way better than the Leopard 1, but it doesn't match up to the M48's armor or the T62's. Now, while its armor may not seem the greatest, you gotta realize that you're gonna be looking down and also be hull down in this tank, and when you do that, the armor values go up to ridiculous amounts. It has enough mobility to get into position and then use its armor to just sit there, tank shots, and dominate. And going back to its 11 degrees of gun depression, while it has the worst gun, Because it's able to do these types of things with its armor and gun depression, its gun technically being weaker does not matter whatsoever. Because you're going to be able to do things that none of these other tanks can. Fun fact, this is also the best gun depression on any tier 10 medium tank in the game. So that means that there is honestly no other tank in the game that can do what this tank does. And to top it all off, you have the premium armor-piercing rounds. While the Leopard 1 still has better DPM with its heat rounds, you're gonna out-trade a lot more people with premium AP rounds over heat. And finally, moving down to the Blitz Stars data in the last 90 days, the Leopard 1 has more players, and yet this is the best performing medium tank out of all of these tanks. I wonder why. It could just be that the M48 and T62 have a lack of players, and the people that play the Leopard 1 currently, there are a lot of people who aren't exactly great that are currently playing the Leopard 1, and this could be why its stats are lower than the STBs. Now, something I normally don't do in honest reviews, but I'm gonna do it every time I review a tier 10 tank, is I'm also gonna talk about the line. I may not necessarily do videos on the tanks before the tier 10, so I will always have a brief little rundown of all the tanks in the line. The line starts at about tier 8, because that's when it actually starts to feel like an STB. The STA-1 is an amazing tank to play, and I had a lot of fun playing it. The Type 61 is a good tank. I didn't have a lot of fun with it, because it just feels like a weaker STB, and it kinda is, but it is not a bad tank. Also, a little honorable mention here is the Kaira, the tier 7 Japanese medium tank. This tank is funny, because it gets an autoloader with a 1-second intraclip reload, and it can be a little fun to just meme around in. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm sure other people have as well. Now, something I'm going to do for tier 10 tank reviews is delve into the tank's gameplay some more so you can get a feel for how the tank plays other than just the stats. A quick note though, I will only do this for tier 10 tanks because I try my best to keep these videos short but informative and interesting with the edits. And this game right here is the perfect example of how the tank plays. It is an aggressive medium. As you see, I'm going to sit here in the middle of the map and use my gun depression and armor to just farm the enemy team while taking very little damage in return. So I cannot stress this enough. Use your gun depression and armor. You are going to be outgunned by every other tier 10 medium and even some of the tier 10 light tanks for that matter. Make sure to take a lot of premium AP rounds. Personally, I like to take this amount of ammo in my STB, but I've actually seen people take more premium ammo than standard because you can afford that with the damage in this tank. This is also the equipment I run on this tank. Calibrated shells don't do that much for this tank, so I really do think rammer is the play here. And I sometimes run supercharge for that point-and-click adventure experience. And I think all the other equipment on this tank is pretty self-explanatory. I think you have a good enough idea on how this tank plays, so let's get into my final opinion of it. I 100% recommend getting this tank. It is very fun to play and a very unique experience. Not to mention the line itself is also very fun to play. The STB has only gotten better with this update, and I think everyone that can get this tank should capitalize on it. Thank you for watching, God bless, and I hope to see you in the next video.